Morning, everybody. My name is Dan Caramanico. I'm one of the new sales coaches here at Accelerator Organization. So we have three really interesting questions this morning. I can hope to be able to help. So the first one is from Carrington Carruthers, and the question is, what are ways to close a prospect when a prospect is hesitant? And they go on to say that they're hesitant due to either working with someone they don't know or me not being geographically local to them. This person is a product photographer. So the first question you have to ask, these come under the heading of objections. They're objecting to what you're presenting. And the first thing you have to realize is that when you get to this point, it's not really what you do at this point that's going to help you close the deal. It's what you need to do before this. When they're hesitant, what that means is that they haven't you haven't connected with them well enough. You haven't um, you haven't uncovered what we call a real compelling reason to buy, and so therefore they're hesitant. Now uh, you may think you know why they're hesitant, but that might not be the case. So I'll tell you the worst thing you can do at this point is try to convince them to go forward because anything you say is at this point is going to make it sound like um, you're pressuring them, right? And nobody wants to be pressured. So let's talk about the conversation before you get to this point. So what you have to do if you're going to get anybody to buy anything, they have to have a compelling reason to buy, and you need to focus on the prospect. Much like, look, um, too many salespeople have what I call a me-centered sales approach. In other words, it's all about me and my product and my service, and it really the prospects don't care about your service. What they care about is their own problem. Just like all doctors believe that prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. A lot of salespeople believe if I just prescribe enough stuff to enough people over a long enough period of time, eventually somebody somewhere is going to buy something. So when you first have the conversation with this prospect, you want to focus on them, much like your doctor focuses on you and what your ailment is. They don't give you any presentation about what they do. Now look, you're going to have to tell them something about what you do, but what you really want to discover is what are they looking for in a photographer? These are some questions you could ask. What are they looking for in a photographer? They want somebody with a certain level of experience in maybe you taking a picture of food, and they want somebody with 5 years of food experience. So they want you to have worked with some kind of a famous brand, or maybe they want somebody that's local to them. The best way to defeat the objection that they're not geographically local is find out where they want the person to be. Maybe they want the person to be local. If they want them to be in their town and you're 1,000 miles away, there may be no way to overcome that objection. But find out not only what they want, but why do they want it, right? Why is that important to them? And many times when they talk about why it's important, you can you in the course of that discussion, it will become obvious that you're the person. And I want to give you one axiom here. You tell more about what you know by the questions you ask than by the statements you make. So just be curious, ask questions, get below the surface. When you think you've asked enough questions, ask a couple more. So the more pain that you can find, we say people don't buy features and benefits, they buy ways to avoid or overcome pain. So the more pain that you can discover, the fewer objections you're going to hear at the end. So look, that's me talking for about 4 minutes there, and maybe there's four or five things, but I'm just going to I'll summarize it this way. Spend more time up front talking about what they want and more importantly, why they want it, more than you talk about your product. The more you ask, they're going to say, hey, if you can get to what that real pain is, they're going to say, wow, this Carrington really understands my problem. And so you look like the one, if you can figure out what the problem is, you're more likely to, in their mind, be the one to be able to fix it. Okay, now you ask the question, I'm going to answer it now. That's how to avoid getting these questions, these objections. If you get there anyway, where they're hesitant to buy, the best thing to do is to say something like, Mrs. Jones, I get the feeling that that you're hesitant to deal with me because I don't have enough experience, or I don't have whatever you feel the objection is. Just restate it for them. Look, I get the feeling that you're uncomfortable because I don't have as much experience as you're looking for. And they'll either agree with that, they'll say, yes, I am uncomfortable with that. Then just ask them to explain it more. Can you explain a little bit more about how you feel about that? And get them to explain their hesitancy. Now, if they're looking for somebody with 15 years experience and you only have 5, there may be no way to no way to deal with that. But there might be. You can say something if they say, "Yeah, I was really looking for somebody that had a lot more experience." You can say why. What experience were you actually looking for, and how do you think that would help? Get them to explain more fully what their objection is. Look, I had a this might help you. I had an example of a young realtor not too long ago, and he was very young, and he had a chance to close on to get to list a house that was very expensive. And so I taught him to do this exact same thing. And so what he said, listen, Mrs. Jones, once he got all that pain out, she wanted somebody who would pay attention to her, that would keep her up to date on what was going on, that would spend a lot of time selling her house. And he said, well, Mrs. Jones, let me just say, I'm new in the business, and I don't have any other houses to sell. I don't. So I guess here's the choice you have to make. Say, look, I'm going to be in the business a long time, and I'm going to need to have you as a referral source. So look, the choice you're going to have to make is, do you want somebody that's got 20 listings and you'll get 5% of their time, or do you want to have me and you'll have 100% of my time because I have nobody else's house to sell but yours? And in that way, once he asked those questions and found out what her real pain was, he was able to address it. And you know what? She gave him the listing. So hopefully that helps. The best thing to do is not get into that situation by asking this question. But if you do, that's a way to deal with it. Um, Carrington, hopefully that will help. It's not. Look, I'm sure a lot of people have that question, run into that kind of situation. Okay, I don't see any further questions in the comments, so I'll move on to question number 2 from somebody named Yethus. And how do I sell new contracts to existing and satisfied clients to retain them as clients? Um, I think I'm not sure. I don't know what pronoun to use here, she or he. I'm not familiar with that name, but I'll call it she. She has. I have a couple of clients whose contractual work with my company is expiring. The training and consulting experiences with these clients has been very good. My company is new and I have never crossed this bridge before, so I'm seeking advice on how to retain these clients and sell new contracts to them. The work we are doing with them is not complete and requires multiple years of engagement. Okay, so once you start to work with clients, I'm sure you have progress meetings weekly or biweekly or something like that, uh, and you want to make sure that in these meetings you should look at them as look, there's a certain amount that are delivery. You're updating um, uh, status and progress and all that, so that you do that. But in addition to all of that stuff, what you're probably doing, you need to make sure that the customer is aware of what still needs to be done. In other words, that's the pain that they have for continuing the work. um, Now, everything I said answering the first question still applies here, and you want to ask those questions up front. Look, when you sell the contract initially, they hired you for a particular reason, and there were probably a list of problems you were supposed to solve um, as part of, I don't know what kind of consulting this is, but whatever it is, you're consulting and trying to help them fix those problems. When you and this applies to whether you're a brand new business. By the way, let me make you feel a little bit better. I mean, I know you said you're kind of a new business. I do some consulting with some very large companies. Accenture is one of them, and it's huge. I get the same exact question from them, and they have professional salespeople they have the exact same problem. So it's not unusual. So what I coach them to do, what I'm coaching you to do, is to as you as you have these weekly meetings, you say this was the original problem we set out to solve. Now so far we've done this and this, and we've solved that problem, and these other problems remain, and that's on our plan to handle next week and next month and so forth. And then you go through doing your work that month, and you come back the following month or the following week, whichever the time frame is, and you say, all right, this is where we are. These are the problems we were supposed to work on this month. These are the things we did, and these are the things that are still left to do. So that it's constantly in the prospect's mind, now your client's mind, that there is work yet to be done, and new work is going to show up as time goes on. Because one of your jobs as a consultant is to find new problems for you to solve. Okay, and and so you can, as you get to a certain point, especially when you start nearing the end of the contract, so maybe it's a year-long contract and it's, you're 6 months in and you've identified some of these problems and you can start to see that we're not, George is your prospect, your client. We're not going to get this is an 8 month solution here. It's probably going to take us 8 months to get this. We only have 6 months left in the contract. We'll do our best to get it done. We'll do what we can do. And as time goes on, next month, we have 5 months left, and we still have more work to do. And pretty soon, you get to the point, you're 2 or 3 months out, you're going to say, you know what, George, we're not going to get finished. Right? There's still more stuff to do. Are you going to want us to continue? Right? So, in a nutshell here, the idea is to keep the prospect constantly in view of aware of what problems you set out to solve, what you have solved, and what still is yet to be solved, and they'll be asking you how do we continue the contract? Okay, so that's my suggestion there. Look, it's not a whole heck of a lot different than selling the initial agreement. You need to have pain. You need to have a compelling reason to buy. And you need to make sure that that compelling reason is refreshed ongoing. And of course, there's a money component to it. But the main thing is if they're aware that they still have a problem, um, then they're going to need to hire you. I had a situation uh, a few years ago. It was probably about 10 years ago. It was a bank, and they had a problem they wanted me to fix, and I said, well, we may be able to fix it. They wanted to just hire me for 6 months. I said, we may be able to do it in 6 months, but we may not be able to do it in 6 months. It all depends on what happens and how motivated your people are to fixing the problems. And I said, but we have a shot. And I did exactly what I'm suggesting. And I saw him every 2 weeks or so. And I kept telling him we're making progress. And he could see the progress. And I said, but we still have some issues. And I would tell him we're going slower than I thought we were going to go. And when we got to about 5 months, I said, Bill, I don't think we're going to be finished by the end of the 6 months. He said, I know, keep going, right? And he gave me authorization to continue going. So it's exactly the same process. It's very simple. There's no magic to it. It's just keep reminding him about what the issues are, and then it should be. And look, don't forget this. Just like I did, you say, look, it doesn't look like we're getting finished. Well, how do you want us to proceed? Okay, I don't see any comments on that. All right, and the third question here is from Asia Small. If I'm going to approach leads via direct message through social media, could you help me with simple, quick script to know how to open the conversation? And I'm not going to read you the whole thing. They're a one-stop shop for SAT prep, college prep, and that kind of thing. And so she's used to how to communicate when it's once the conversation is ongoing or when they express interest. But how do you start the conversation? Okay, look, when you're when I think people make a lot of mistakes in this, and I know it because I get approached constantly by people on LinkedIn and Facebook and other places, and they always do it incorrectly. Look, forget about social media for just a second. Let's suppose we were doing this a conversation with somebody, right, in person, right? Maybe you meet somebody at a networking event, right? You would never go up to the person. Imagine yourself at a networking event in person, and you walk up to the person and you say, "Hi, my name's Asia, and we do SAT prep, and I'd like to meet with you." I mean, how would you feel? That would never work, right? The person would say, "Whoa, this person's a little too aggressive," or they can say a little too forward, or a little too. Um, I mean, they're asking me for something, and we don't have any kind of relationship. That's not how you would do it in real life. And so let's see, how would you do it in real life? You would go up and you might say to them. Hi, my name's Asia. What's your name? And they'd say, my name's John. Oh, hi, John. How you doing? And you might say to them, what do you do? And you would start a conversation with them, and they would start telling you about their business, or about their personal life, or something. And you might ask a question like, oh, as you said, they have three kids or something, and they say, oh, how old are they? And maybe you've been talking for 2 minutes now, and they say, well, I have a kid who's in high school. Say, oh, what school do they go to? Oh, they go to the local public school. Um, I assume they're doing really well in school. And say, well, he's struggling a little bit. What college are they going to go to? I don't know. We're trying to get him into this. So you would gradually get yourself into that conversation, right? It wouldn't be right out of the gate. Now, here's what happens. Here's what most people do on social media. It looks just like I said it. You would never do it in person. They connect with you on LinkedIn. Hey, I'd like to connect with you. Oh, I connect. Thanks. Immediately I get a response. Usually it's pre-programmed, and it says, "Hey, what I do is I help people with SAT preparation, and we have a really good program, and I think it really can help your kids get accepted into a really good school. And I'd like to spend some time and tell you about the program." I mean, it's way too much, way too quick, right? So you need to mimic what you would do in real life on any whatever social media you're experiencing. So you're using, I mean. So the best way to do it is to ask them a question now, and get a little bit of an interaction back and forth, you know. And look, most people would like to tell you about their business, so they just say, hey, tell me about your business, tell me about your what do you guys do, tell me a little bit about it, and let them tell you some stuff, right? And it might be some interaction back and forth. And then when you tell what you do about your company, the, don't talk so much about the course and what you do. You can say we do SAT prep. What we generally do is work with families who are concerned about their kids' grades, or maybe they're struggling in mathematics, or they're trying to figure out how to pump up their SAT score so they can get into a better school. Notice what I'm doing is I'm not saying what I do and what's in the courses, but I'm 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 giving a description of what pain somebody might be in who would be interested in using your service. Okay, so if I'm worried about my kid getting into a better school, or I'm worried about them struggling in math, or then I say, yeah, that might be worthwhile helping. So so look, that's one way to do it. Just start an interaction about anything that you notice about their business or about them personally on their page, something to get them interested in, just like you would do in if they were in person, back and forth, and then gradually you can introduce your service. And when you introduce it in the way that you talk about the pains you fix, not the services you provide. All right. They can resonate with the pain. They won't resonate with the services you provide. Okay. Now, having said all of that, if you're only going to do one interaction, the initial interaction, you ask for like a script. This would be my initial interaction. I would ask a question. So, I'm connected. I'll use Sean's name, Sean Thomas, and I'll say, "Hi, Sean. I'm really great to connect. Hey, do you have any kids who are trying to get into schools so that they're trying to increase their SAT scores, or is that of any kind of interest?" So just ask him a question like, are you trying to increase your SAT scores? Like, I don't know if you're connecting with the parent or with the kid, but if you're connecting probably with the parent, you would say, "Hey, just a question. Do you know anybody who has a kid?" See, that's another way to do it. Not talk to them directly. Just say, "Do you know anybody who has a kid that's trying to pump up their SAT scores or is struggling in math or some of the sciences? If so, we might be able to help." Okay, so Asia, oh, I see Asia said the parent, right? I think that's what I guessed. So Asia, is this helpful? Um, since I see you're on, so maybe you can type a response. Um, just just imagine yourself talking to this person in real life, and that will give you, it'll inform more what you're supposed to do. But don't immediately ask them for something. Give them something first. If you can, if you have a tip about how to answer a question on an SAT test, uh, if you have a tip, put the tip in. Give them something first before you ask for anything. So, like I have 1 minute sales tips that I do. So I can say, hey, I have these 1 minute sales tips. If you'd like to get one, just let me know. I can add you to the list. So I'm giving them something. Um, so that's something you can do to kick off the conversation. Just give the tip, and then get back, a few days later and say, hey, were you able to use that tip? Give them one or two, and then you can start asking something. Yeah, there you go. Asia says she has an SAT prep. What is it? SAT prep lead magnet and study skills lead magnet. Yeah, give them something, right? And then you can follow up later and say, well, was it useful? Okay. But make it conversational. Try not to make it look like it's a marketing piece, right? People won't look at it and won't take it as seriously. It'll look more targeted. You need to connect. Look, when you develop a relationship, which you're trying to do, and it's difficult online. It's difficult enough in person, let alone online, when you're not looking at the person, you can't read the body language or anything. So here's the three stages of how do you develop a connection with somebody. The first is interaction. This is whether you're in person or online. First is interaction. It's, hi, my name's Dan, and you say my name's Asia. We've interacted. We've got some level of communication going. And after a while, the second stage is engagement, where both people are involved in the interaction. They give you some information, they ask you a question, you ask them a question. So you're involved in a conversation. And then the third stage is connection. And connection happens when they understand, they know that you get it, and you know that they understand that you get it. Okay, so it's interaction. I see your question, Asia. It's interaction, engagement, connection, and you have to all relationships go through those three stages. Think about just your personal life. In dating or whatever. You meet somebody and you first you interact about superficial things like where you went to school and so forth. And then you both get involved in a conversation where you're asking and answering each other's questions, and you see some common ground and so forth, and then there is an actual bond created in that connection. That's what you're trying to mimic online. So I know this is a long-winded explanation to a pretty simple question. I know we were kind of hoping for a script, and I hope this is helpful. So Asia, while you're on, is there any you want to type in one last question? We got a minute here. I don't see you writing anything. Okay, so with that, I'll bring this to a close, and hopefully answering these three questions has given everybody something that they can use in the next couple days. Asia, if you can message me. Okay, okay. Asia says she got it. So just send me an instant message or an email or something through Sean. I assume there's a way to do that, and I'll be happy to answer the question. The other thing you can do is I think we're doing a Zoom tomorrow night, 6 o'clock Eastern time, I believe, 6 or 6:30. It's probably on the schedule, and maybe we could role play it if we do that. Okay, everybody have a great day, and hopefully these questions helped everybody.